I want to thank Chairman Royce, who just stepped out for a few minutes, for holding this important hearing this morning. I will recognize myself for my 5 minutes. Human trafficking, as we know, is one of the worst and most alarming human rights issues of our day, depriving millions around the world of their most basic dignity as human beings. And given today's interconnected global economy and the reach of many organizations throughout the world, it is imperative that we find more ways to enlist the help of businesses and local organizations to help fight this awful crime. Many of the victims associated with human trafficking, as we know, are women and young girls who are forced to enter prostitution. Many who are trafficked to our nation are migrant workers from Mexico and Central America. So, Dr. McDonald, how can we improve working relations on the border to help fight labor trafficking from Latin America, and what consequences should the U.S. place on companies for blatantly ignoring trafficking problems in their business? Also, it is not surprising that dictatorships around the globe are the largest violators of international anti-trafficking standards and do nothing to protect people from this modern-day slavery. Once again, the regimes of Iran, Cuba, Syria, and North Korea are designated as top-tier 3 countries in the 2012 Trafficking in Persons report issued by our State Department. In Cuba, the Castro tyranny supports and encourages the sex tourism industry by exploiting vulnerable women and children. According to a recent report by El Nuevo Herald in South Florida, foreigners travel to Cuba to take advantage of young women who are recruited to enter prostitution in order to fill the coffers of the Castro brothers. On Central America, reports are that drug cartels and gangs are using their narcotic routes to traffic human beings across the border. These individuals may be migrant workers, drug traffickers, and even terrorists. So, Supervisor Nabe, what actions is your local government taking to prevent trafficking in the California-Mexico border, and how can we ensure that our allies in the region prioritize this threat as we have? As we consider the global scope of human trafficking, we must be clear that it occurs within our very borders, making this a domestic challenge as well as an international one. And this is especially true in my home district of South Florida, a region with one of the highest rates of human trafficking in the country. It's an appalling reality, and I remain committed to making sure that we have every effort at work in order to fight it, because the promotion of basic human rights and human dignity must remain a cornerstone for the United States as our foreign policy initiatives. So, Supervisor and Dr. McDonald, if you could address the issue of that I brought up in my questions.
Okay, I'll just quickly say that I think it is. I'm glad you brought up this issue of what's happening on the border, because I think it's really important that with all the attention placed on the drug war there and the smuggling and trafficking of people across the border, that many companies that have those workers within their supply chain need to be held accountable for how those workers are getting there. And it's really important to note that the people who are trafficking the drugs, trafficking the weapons, are also trafficking the people, that there's a great deal of overlap between these gangs and this organized crime. And so if you're relying on workers who are taking those migratory routes, then without a doubt you are entangled in this problem. And to try to say that you're not is simply burying your head in the sand. And so whether those people are coming here with documents or not, very often traffickers are involved. And so companies really must focus on what steps they can take, concrete steps, rather than trying to pretend that they're not entangled with the issue. And
Thank
that's
you,
where,
sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Supervisor?
Well, great question. You give me an opportunity, a little soapbox here. I mean, at the end of the day, those of us in local government, our job is to solve the problem, to fix it with the resources that we have. But as the case in so many cases, particularly like items like this, we are at the beck and whim of the federal government and the state government to put the tools in place that covers everybody. We only, as a county, can do so much as it relates to gang issues, penalties, those kinds of things. We are, need state legislation, enabling state legislation. We need federal legislation to really raise the level so we can continue to do our jobs. You know, these young girls, nobody asks them whether they're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or Independent. They are true victims. And those of us at the local level have to deal with that. And that's why we appreciate your leadership here and others, because we need that leadership and we need that assistance both at the federal level as well as the state level.
Well, we thank you, each one of you, for what you're doing. So proud to recognize Mr. Vargas for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.